Volunteers, please keep all the participants on mute except the panelists and speakers. We'll start the session now. All right, great. A very good morning to one and all present here today. And I welcome you to the panel discussion on working women amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. To introduce our theme, the world is counting the cost of COVID-19. It has affected everyone, everywhere, and it threatens to undo the gains in recent years for women and young girls. Today, our all-women panel of alumni will discuss and make recommendations for consideration by all sectors of society, from governments to international organizations and civil organizations, to respond to the needs of women and girls during and after this public health crisis, with examples of actions already taken and what more needs to be done. A quick introduction to our speakers for today. First, Ms. Gunjan Pahuja, our alumni of the Literary Seminary, who pursued civil engineering in the batch of 2008. She has a work experience of more than 6 years in rural development and also did her MSc in Information and Communication Technology in Agriculture and Rural Development in DAIICT Gandhinagar, Gujarat in 2012. She is currently working as a knowledge development expert in Tata Trusts. Welcome, Ms. Gunjan. Secondly, Ms. Deepika Ati Narayanan, who pursued her BTech in Biotechnology in 2012 batch. She has work experience as a microbiologist and did her master's in infectious disease at Drexel University, batch of 2016. At present, she is a microbiologist at Pfizer Inc. Welcome, Ms. Deepika. Ms. Shraddha Rao pursued her BTech in ECE, batch of 2011. She has work experience of more than 3 years at Unilever and Pandoco. She did her MBA major in Supply Chain and Operations at Christ University, batch of 2015. At present, she is a manager at Pandoco. Welcome, Ms. Shraddha. Ms. Queenie Gogularasa pursued her BTech in Biotechnology, batch of 2013. She has been our student convener as well, and currently she is the assistant manager at Canada Gateway Lawyers. Welcome, Ms. Queenie. Finally, our moderator for today's session is Dr. V. Kavita, who pursued her PhD during the academic period of 2012 to 2018. She is a research alumni of the Literary Seminary with experience of 9 years as an assistant professor in English. Welcome, Ms. Kavita. Without further ado, I welcome everybody to the session and I request Dr. L. Ramesh to felicitate the gathering. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. My voice is audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much. And it is very hectic situation today in Tamil Nadu. All people are every time there is a updates on weather report, and I'm very happy. Madam was very when we started this discussion. Madam was very. We had a very long discussion some 4-5 days back. Because today there is a university exam is there, how students will connect here, like that lot of discussion. Then we thought we can go for postpone the program. Then adamantly madam, about madam told no, we will host the program on the same day. Like that, finally come to the conclusion. Very happy. The two things I would like to give the happiness. One is the alumni initiative, because we had long back lot of alumni connecting with the Literary Seminary, maybe Lit First and Glittercacy. Alumni are coming back for the valedictory, and alumni are supporting as a mentor. But through the online meet, I hope this is the combination of panel discussion. The first time alumni panel discussion. Second appreciation that through the women alumni. That is always a best one. And how these challenges, the COVID-19 challenges, the women to overcome, to be discussed by the alumni, by the moderator also alumni, by faculty plus alumni. So it is good that very good start, and it will be the good motivation for the present students, those who are with us now. And you all know that now our Literary Seminary extended as a professional society, and it is declared as a professional society Previously, when you were there, it is coming under Department of English. Now it is not like that. It is a professional society and it is common for the whole university. It means that both dental, medical, physio, nursing, all students are eligible to participate. And very slowly within a year, we will be able to get more. Now it is initiative started. Now we have members from arts, science, English, different departments members are there. So this is what the development which we had, good development here. And I hope another point of view, very recently we had a wonderful program Lit First. In connection with that, I request the team Literary Seminary because our alumni, we can't able to get them back to our university even after COVID also, because the alumni are in other different position. So I request you to continue this panel discussion in couple of months, maybe 2 months once, 3 months once, panel discussion with the alumni, so that it will be a good connectivity. Within 1 year, 2 year, if we can able to get back all the alumni through the panel discussion. So two things: one is connecting the present our students with the alumni. That is always best. Second part is the how alumni are working and their experience to be shared to our students. That is always best. But this agenda, this panel discussion is not like that. So maybe in the second panel discussion, third, more experience to be shared, so that it will be very, very useful for the present students, so that they will they will plan and execute their future career in a big way. So that is always best, because the present Queenie and all the teams, how they worked here and how their experience helped to do go short. Now I am very happy, and I hear the word assistant manager in a short period of time. See when to become a manager, it will take a long journey. After 10 years only you can become a manager. But I hope Sarda now in manager and Queenie assistant manager. And see, I am very damn sure this happened because you have good experience, good type of skills which developed you because of the literary seminary. I can guarantee that, because whether you know or you not known, automatically within that 3 years period you traveled through the literary seminary, organized lot of events without how to generate fund and how to coordinate, execute. So this kind of management will help you to get the work done fast in your where you go, where you join. When you go and join the work, when you doing the work fast, automatically your superior, what they will do, they will go for immediate promotion for you. That actually happened now. I am able to see that happiness now. So that is what the very, very important as a teachers, as a professors, what we need to develop for the student. That 100% our only one club literary seminary which is doing that. Because when you have a track record of literary seminary last 10 years, all the students, mostly when we talk about 75% of our literary seminary students are in top position, and very short time all the students are getting the good promotions. I have a lot of examples in that. So that is what the essence of literary seminary. So the students, those who are in literary seminary now, I can guarantee you, after couple of years, maybe after you finished your graduation, after 3 years, 4 years, you will come back and tell, yes, I achieved very shortly a good post because of literary seminary. So that is what my conclusion. And I thank you so much, madam, and Padmashini ma'am, and the another we can call it as the junior leader, Tangam ma'am. I think at almost 1 month, so 1 year, 2 year, madam is traveling with us. So we are very confident that that literary seminary will go to the next level. It already gone to the next level, because lot of new programs are coming. So thank you so much, and I am very happy. And this panel discussion will go on in a good way. So this outcome will going to helpful for the people. Women across the globe, because this video will be available in the YouTube channel. So anytime the people will be able to go through the video, so that it will be good for us. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. L. Ramesh, for your inspirational words. Thank you for joining us. Now, in order to initiate the session, I would like to request our moderator, Dr. V. Kavita, to deliver her initial speech.
Okay. Thank you, Shahid. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone present here today, the learned members of the Institute, the panelists, and the audience. COVID-19 pandemic, probably the most discussed term in decades. With so many perspectives changing and rules broken, we see the world still struggling to make sense of what's going on and get a grip on the situation through narratives and discussions like this. Working women during COVID-19 pandemic is the topic of today's panel discussion. So whenever there is a political or social crisis, women undergo certain changes and struggles that are specific to women. There have been positive outcomes as well as adverse impacts in the past. Turning the pages of history, we can find stories of women shouldering the economy of their countries during the periods of crisis. And we also have stories of women undergoing violence, abuse, and displacement during such crisis situations. This pandemic is no different. We see a huge number of women as frontline workers and healthcare personnel coming forward to save the day. Also, we have issues like the globally discussed shadow pandemic, the violence against women, and also somewhat discreetly discussed issues of the migrant women struggling with their menstrual cycles or pregnancy during their marathon walks across the country. We have a largely unaccounted loss of income of the domestic helps who make a significant part of the society. And for women working from home, we also have subtler issues like the need of a masked workspace and time, and also a supported ecosystem at their home. On these issues and set the narrative, we are fortunate enough to have 4 young working women from across the globe with rich professional experience and background as our panel members of the day. So our panel members have been introduced by Shahid, and I would like to add that Gunjan Pahuja is from New Delhi, Shraddha Rao is from Bengaluru, Deepika Adinarayanan is from USA, and Queenie Gogilarasa is from Sri Lanka. And yes, welcome guys, welcome to the panel discussion. And yes, this is for the audience. While the discussion is going on, you guys can post your queries in the chat box. That will be duly forwarded to the respective panel members you want to talk to. And without any further delay, let us move on to Gunjan to, yes, listen to her views on this today. Yes, Gunjan?
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Hi. So, as the topic says that it's about the issues that are faced by women during COVID, and women, when we say it's belong to a very, we can say about the diverse sectors that we look at. So we have, and me personally being working with women in the rural and frontline workers sector, I see a different domain of struggle that they have faced, and which cannot be remotely could be felt by us at what I could say at the least. So here we saw the agriculture women who are on the field, on the ground. They have faced the issues. They are the one, if you know, to do all the land labor, etc. They are the one who are responsible for that, equivalent to managing their houses. We faced a lockdown from their end to reach the market. So that somewhere ended the stream for them to reach the market and gain the income. There was a gap there. Then we see in the sense of frontline health workers, so the ASHA workers and the Anganwadi workers, I've seen them being tormented by the police and the other people while they were trying to reach out to the target audience, which are your pregnant women and lactating mothers. So if you see the cycle of flow of the nutrition, I have seen that that flow was broken for a long period during these COVID times, where the women who are in the rural and the urban slums areas are dependent on the ration by the government have not received that flow, have not received that amount of nutritious that they were supposed to get. And that also attack the adolescent girls who are dependent on the education and counseling by the self-help groups, etc. So there was a chain of effects that we have felt during these times. Then there was, I would also have seen while I was working on a research project about the sanitation worker. So as you know, during COVID, we have increased waste generation, right? So there was a lot of masks that we were throwing, there were gloves that we were there, and people lack that basic decency of waste management in our country overall. So that further added to the grievance of those sanitation workers that were on the field, and they lacked the basic facility, the gloves, the mask, all those facilities were lacked by them, and they were dependent on those overall. So there was a chain that I could see the women are impacted on, and also the wage increase. So these are the daily wage earners also, not the Anganwadi, but the waste segregation workers, the agriculture workers, they are mostly the daily wage earners. And if you see, it had a very bad impact on their self, which also led to further violence. And that has led to a bigger impact, which is not been recorded, as in like there's no constructive data also to prove that point for and that is where we see a lot of mess happening. There was recent study that I saw from Meghalaya that there was some 900 plus pregnant women, because of the lack of health services, they could not survive. So this is the service that's supposed to be given by the government, but if you see, there is a block because of these. So as I was saying previously, sharing with Kavita ma'am and the panelists, that there are different, as government has given various health centers in the slums and the rural areas, which were cut off. Like these were all devoted to COVID patients. So eventually all the patients, the pregnant women who are dependent on these centers, the free services that they get from the government has been cut off. They could not reach to them, and that further aggravated their health issues, and they could not survive. So Meghalaya is a very small state. So if you compare with the whole nation, it's actually a huge numbers, that the ones which haven't been even reported. So there have been a lot of gaps during COVID, especially for the women in this struggle, and they could not make it overall. And but there have been, from the good perspective, I mean, I could say that I have seen the young girls who are actually getting the opportunity to, learn new skills from home, who can actually afford it, but not for everyone. Like, if I would say, I have also faced a lot of overburden from the working environment. So when we say about girls like us who are working, we have faced a lot of overtime issues. Like the people have lost the sense of time in office. There is no proper agenda. Like this is the time till you have to work. The work is given to us at 10. The work is given to us 12. The people, the women who are working, who are managing the families, it's impossible for them to look the family, because it is expected from the women only to look at family as well as the work. And it becomes a difficult task right now, more than before, that to manage the house as well as the work, because there's no sense of time. And this was the overall concerns I have felt during COVID time. And there are more which probably is aggravated because of these issues. And so this was overall idea I would want to share, like my experience during COVID.
Okay, so you talked about the facilities or the safety measures that are safety kits that are given to the workers, frontline workers. And do you feel that there is any difference? Gender-based difference in the availability of the kits and the safety issues. The women frontline workers were not properly taken care of, or there was nobody to represent their issues. Do you think
yes, ma'am? So, yes, definitely. So in the initial days when the actual lockdown happened, so from 24th March when I account to the day, there was no one who was actually they don't have a first thing the card like mostly I am an Anganwadi worker, those kind of things they don't have, they have not received that. So so whenever they were going, they were stopped randomly by everyone and nothing to prove like listen, I am a government employee, I am someone who's from your end who is supposed to go and give these things to people. And that was not the facility that they were provided. We have the hierarchical level, at the block level, we have at the district level. So at that end, people completely I've seen officials being shut themselves. So there was no one to look at them. But when the situation actually, like the problem started adding up because they were raising their concerns, there was no one to bother about like, okay, this was the issue and we have to look further unless the situation added. Like it went to extreme.
Okay, so I think it is more or less the case with the domestic health. Okay, the case of the domestic health where they were not properly regulated, they do not have an identity card as such. Okay, so can you suggest? I mean, do you have anything in mind to suggest some measures that can regulate the women? They make the most. A very significant part of the society, the domestic health and the. Yeah. Do you think there any measures can be implemented to regulate their, streamline their working and, like providing them any ID cards or something?
It definitely can help that they can have an as employee ID. We say about everyone. I don't know how feasible it would be, but we have women in the, I don't feel it is appropriate to add it now, but we have people in the sex working areas. We have women, they are the one who are literally earning, they're dependent on these income, and we cannot downgrade them because of their work profile, but they don't, and these kind of domestic workers and all, they don't have an ID. They don't have a, yes, as rightly said, we need bank account for them, we need a proper IDs for them, we need all that significant value to them so that they can be added in the banking system as well as around the overall financial transactional system, which definitely lacks for them. And there's no recognition from these sectors. Labor laws, I don't know how much valuation is given to them, skill. When you talk about Skill India, when you talk about labor laws, their contribution is not very much significantly given out, and that is where we need to work more in the policies also.
I think we need to give more recognition to this issue probably in the future, and this is like an eye-opener situation for us, at least in terms of the women, the major part of the society, the women working in daily labors. Yes. And I would also like to know something more on your concerns about the women working from home. Okay, the issues that they have difficulty in managing time, and since there is the sense of time is totally lost. Okay, that demarcation is clearly off. So can you? Women are known for multitasking. Okay, so that term itself, I do have a little bit of reservations about that term, and probably we can come to that, my opinion, later on maybe. But do you think the multitasking capacity or skill of women, has it come in support, or is it like playing against them at this point of time? I also have the same question for Shraddha also, probably after she finishes. So yes, Gunjan.
It isn't the benefit because eventually women are emotional. Even if you tell us, okay, don't do this, we will do it. Like if we have to look for our people, and this is what we tend to do. So we have to manage. We know that if no one is cleaning the house, it will be our problem later. So we have to do it eventually. And this is what society is giving us. And I have seen there is a huge change in the male audience around, they are contributing to the household work, but that doesn't exist for the previous generation. If I see like my mothers and their my aunts and etc., it doesn't exist to much extent there, but the things are changing. But overall, yes, it is expected from the women to manage the cooking, to manage the groceries, to manage the cleaning. That is as general as it gets. So yeah, there is a problem, and we do multitask. And I've seen, just like you have to wash clothes, you have to clean the floors. Though I'm single, like I don't have to. It's my own health that I have to look for, and for the yes, it is a challenging time for them further adding it because the maids are not coming, so have to give the maximum support to home as well. Yeah.
Okay. So, do any of the panelists have any questions to ask? Anything to share regarding this? Yes, Queenie.
Yes, I have just a question for her based on her personal experience. She mentioned about workload being more now. Do you see a difference between your male colleagues and what's been handed to you? Is there a difference?
Overall, I would say that most of my male friends are married and they are pretty happy with the lockdown. Like, this is my personal experience. So we are very happy with lockdown, but I could see the struggle within. Like, it's challenging for me to manage everything. And they do like, so at times when I have a deadline, I tend to struggle with the deadline further. Like, I could extend my deadlines, would ask for more time, but that is not looked at a better regard as compared to the other person who's delivering the work probably before time, because they have the luxury to do it. So yes, there is a problem that I faced.
Okay. So yes, I think we can quickly move on to Shraddha. Here from, Deepika, you do have something to ask.
Yeah, one second. Gunjan, that was a very, very insightful discussion that you had. I wanted to also know if you had, so considering the works that you do and all the part of society, like the rural workers that you deal with, have those women also been, like, apart from the lockdown, and again, they're not able to get the necessities that they need. How have they been able to deal with that? Because if you can't go to the shops are closed and you don't have certain things, then has there been anything done for them that they're able to access the things that they need?
So in this regard, I would just give a glimpse. So when I work in this, the government program is called Poshan Abhiyan, we try to cater to the target audience. So we have pregnant women, lactating mothers, adolescent girls, and children between 3 to 6 years of age. We look at them overall. And so pregnant, lactating mothers, we give the ration to them, and adolescent girls, ration is given to them. So they come to the Anganwadi, the food is given to them, and this is how their nutritious quantity, whatever your body is needed, so that thing is as per the calorific and protein value, this kind of food is provided to them. But since during lockdown, there was a gap in that, there was a break to that. It actually led to further increase in the malnutrition figure in the country. And you might find the good numbers to that, but there was a drastic decline. We have all the data that we get from the system. We see what was the flow of the ration from village to national level. We have the data that we receive, and there have been a drastic decline. And so we know that if they could manage from the people nearby, probably that could help. But overall, there was from our end, we have not given them the ration. And some people who could manage from the near household, from their neighbors who could be kind-hearted to give them, that would be the only way I could feel, because otherwise I don't see that how they could have managed. And also with the migration that has happened, so the more people have reached the villages with the deprivation of deprived of their food quantity as well. So these people were not even added to the system. So we have a proper database to reach out to each audience. So suppose a woman who has been a migrant to some city has reached to the village, and there are thousands, lakhs of women who went back during lockdown. They were not even in the system, and they were not added to be provided the food. There has been a huge decline in terms of food supply over during this time.
Okay. So thank you, Gunjan. That was very insightful, like Deepika mentioned. And can we quickly move on to Shraddha to hear her view?
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be on the panel with accomplished women who are alumni of the same college, including the moderator. Uh, before I begin, I just wanted to thank the Literary Seminary for all its contribution to my life. About today's topic, so we're talking about working women amongst COVID pandemic, and Gunjan rightly pointed out about the migrant labor and the lesser privileged section of the society and the kind of hardships that they faced during the whole lockdown and eventually getting back to work. But I understand that all of us present here come from a much more privileged part of the society. We are people with better facilities. We have access. We have good healthcare. We have good education, and thus the opportunities available to us are also immensely huge compared to the lesser privileged society that we have. I come from a completely different perspective on working women and how the pandemic has impacted them. So while a situation like this is unprecedented and it requires a radical shift in the mindset and change of perspective for everyone, working women especially have faced a lot of difficulties in managing this kind of a multitasking. How I understand this impact is probably in three phases. The first phase where everyone was forced to work from home and there was complete chaos. The second phase where things stabilized and people kind of understood how to manage their resources and time and be productive at work and with their personal life as well. And the third step is the future of this pandemic, because we all know it is here to stay and for quite some time. Even with the availability of vaccine, we'll have to get to the distribution stage and ensure that everyone has gotten enough immunity to fight this virus. So I wanted to address it in these three parts. So the first phase, which I mentioned as the chaos, is basically where a large population of the working class in India was suddenly required to give up their office spaces and the luxury of working out of a dynamic team and all the infrastructure that came in with the office, to shifting to a house environment where you would immediately associate it with personal life. You now had your dependents, whether it be your parents or your children, your spouse, whether working or not, and you're confined in a space which is not meant for working ideally. There was lack of workstation, internet bandwidth became an issue. People did not know how to manage their time. There was no demarcation of work time, rightly as Gunjan mentioned. We had calls starting from 8 in the morning, and there were requests for work submissions late at night as well. And people did not know how to take breaks and how to utilize their time efficiently to be productive. This chaos led to a lot of overworking. But also what this brought in was the additional household chores that came in. So working women, especially of the middle class and upper middle class, were used to having house help around. And a lot of things were taken for granted, like maintaining the house, daycare for children, school for children. All of these were now suddenly taken away, and they had to face this additional responsibility of managing all of these things. And I must acknowledge that women of yesteryears are starting to raise better children, and hence the workload is not really completely on women. I have colleagues and I have friends and family where the men pitch in equally towards the household chores, and this helped a lot during the whole pandemic and the lockdown. The same is not true for the yesteryears, right? So like Gunjan also pointed out, probably our parents and their parents did not have that equal load sharing of household activities. The burden of raising children and managing the house solely fell on women. This kind of gave us an advantage during the lockdown, especially people who had that privilege. And once things started settling down during the stabilization phase, people now knew how to work from home. And offices also got sensitized to the needs of their employees. This gave working women a big advantage. they were people who had taken a sabbatical due to personal reasons, or people who had women who had relocated due to their marriage, or for any other reason for supporting the family and taking care of the elders, were now able to join the workforce and contribute efficiently. Companies started giving out policies of working from anywhere, giving them supporting infrastructure in terms of creating a workstation for them, providing ergonomic chairs, and giving good internet connection. Clients also started understanding that how businesses would work. Customers were becoming more internet friendly, digital friendly. Payments are now streamlined thanks to a lot of government schemes. So even transactions during the whole lockdown became quite simpler. And during this whole stabilization phase, which I believe we are in right now, we have somehow learned how to work efficiently during the pandemic. And that has kind of helped working women to provide equal time to their professional lives and their careers as well as their personal life. Now we are moving to a stage where we know that we're going to get a vaccine for this in the next year or so, and but still a lot of companies have taken that step to allow permanent work from home policy, and I believe that is going to help a lot of women who are afraid to otherwise join the workforce due to travel and other reasons, now have that opportunity to join it back. And I think that's a really good thing that this pandemic has brought in, among all the other negatives that we constantly talk about. All the hardships are definitely there, and I do acknowledge that irrespective of the societal class that people belong to, they have all faced different levels of hardships compared to their previous state. But these are some of the positives that have really worked for working women due to this working from home policy.
Okay, Shraddha, that was a very optimistic perspective on the present situation and probably the future also. Nice to hear it. Okay, so like you said, once in a while we hear some positive perspectives also regarding the situation. And yes, it's good to hear. But you mentioned that this situation of whether, the women staying at home, working from home might be for some time, okay, in the future also. And it is actually beneficial for them, and they can join the workforce. Okay, but do you think the present situation will actually contribute to increase their efficiency, or be focused on towards their goals and climbing up the corporate ladder and all the stuff? Do you think the present situation is ideal enough for women? And what are your suggestions for women who are actually kind of like right now just about managing between home and office? Your suggestions as well as your perspective on whether this will help support their efficiency level.
Okay. Before I answer the question, I would just like to bring in my background a little bit so that you understand where I'm coming from. I work with a startup and we have a very lean workforce. So we're about 3 years old company, and we are only about 100 people right now. And most of the workforce was remote even before we got into the whole pandemic and the lockdown. I used to work out of Bombay, out of my house, and I always had this equal opportunities that everyone else in my team had. We did not have to be physically present at office to discuss anything, or to talk about appraisals or promotions. Everything for us was remote. Now, I definitely do acknowledge that this is a one-off case, and not everyone has the same luxury that probably I enjoyed. But having said that, I believe that the productivity for an individual really comes down to the fact that how much are they willing to dedicate for their professional lives ultimately. So we have noticed that people who were engineers, especially who were working out of office for debugging, for the software development in my organization, were completely used to being in an office setup, and then all of them had to move back to home and start working from there. But the productivity levels have not gone down. it definitely took some time for people to get used to the idea that I do not have the same resources available, but at the same time I now have digital tools which are facilitating my work. And I think it is only a matter of adoption of the tools and how supportive your organization is in terms of creating policies which are conducive to your growth. I believe that if a person is determined enough and he's putting in that amount of effort instead of lazing around just because they do not have to go to office, I definitely believe it should not hinder their growth. And especially for women are known for their multitasking. Women are known to manage multiple facets of their life as per the need arises. If they're having a young child to care about, it's not that they leave their careers and just tend to the child. So women have done that in the past, and I believe that it should not be an obstacle for their growth in the future as well.
Okay.
I would, hi, this is Deepika. Yes, so I would like to add on to what Shraddha Didi said and share some experiences that, not me personally, since I don't have any children and I'm not married, so it's just me in my household, but some experiences that my colleagues who are married and have children in a different age groups have. So they actually find, and since we work, I'm a microbiologist, we work in the lab, my whole team works in the lab. So we are technically considered essential workers. So we had to go in every day, even during the lockdown here. So, but what they did for us was they told us, don't come to the lab if you don't have to, and try to work, just come in, finish your lab work, and then just go back home so you don't have to be at work. What this really led was the women in my team who had children found it much easier to deal with that. So especially now also because the children are also at home. So you need, it's fine if they're a little bit older, but even they need a little bit of minding, because if you tell your child to like do homework and then they're not going to do homework. So they need a little bit of supervision. So it was helpful for them to be there and like supervise the child, and they'll do their paperwork and whatever else they need to do while they're doing it. And for some people who are not in the lab, who are working admin, apparently they found it easier to work from home because it cut down on the travel. There was no traffic or anything that they had to deal with. And when they're at home, but it also depends, right? So if they were able to find a nice, like a secluded area in the house where they could focus on the work, they could finish what they had to do in a short amount of time, because there are no interruptions from people coming in and randomly giving, like, because there's always, like, if you're at your desk, someone comes in and they have a question to ask or stuff like that. So when they don't have those interruptions, they're able to finish their work quickly. And once they're done with their work, they don't have to be there for, like, it's not 9 to 5. Like, if you finish with your task, then you're done with your task. So it depends. So some people find it useful to be at home and work, like, focus on 100% of the task and finish the task. But for some people, definitely, who are a little bit more social and who like having that kind of like office environment, and they kind of like they work off the energy of the others. So for those people, they found it very difficult to work from home. So moving forward, like Shraddha Didi said, implementing companies are seeing the value in implementing work from home procedures where possible, and letting the employees choose instead of forcing everyone to work from home, forcing everyone to come to the office. They're trying to like implement. So 2 days in a week you can work from home if you can, or just come in if you want. So giving them the flexibility, especially for women, makes it. I think that was the one thing that this pandemic has really brought to the fore. Like how much extra work people are doing that they don't really need to be doing to get the job done. So that was like in terms of efficiency, I think that is something that people are beginning to consider, that maybe you don't have to come to an office to do work. You can just like do work also.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with you. We definitely get the work done a lot faster without all the distractions at office as well.
I would like to add on something. Can I?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh. The thing is that I got this work from home very closely. Like my wife is doing work from home, but in our office, the mentality of the boss is like, "Chalo, tum ghar se kaam kar rahe ho." Means you are working from home, na, you can do it. Even if by 9, whether it is 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., she get the call, she get the meeting done, and she keep on working from 9 a.m. till 9.
Sushant, please give a second. Gunjan, can you mute yourself? I think there is a way. I can hear an echo from your end. Yeah, please, Sushant, go ahead.
So what I was saying that I saw Diksha working like from 9 a.m. till 12 a.m. in the morning. It's like that. And so there were so many times that people think that, okay, fine, you guys are working from home. You can do it like anyway. Well, when those 42 days of lockdown, I saw it like I was cooking in the home and she was working over there. But the thing is that there must be some kind of balance should be there. Don't you guys think like that way? And another thing is that don't you think our managers should understand that, okay, these people are working, like whether he is a guy or girl, I am not considering anything, whether he is a guy or a girl. If someone is working from home, don't they have their responsibility to work for the home also? Like when we are going to office, we are working for 8 hours or 12 hour shift. But when we are working from home, we have to take care of our house also. But in our offices, they don't consider things like that. And few of us, if someone is lucky, like if they are still going to the office and if they are working from home for like 8 hours and that's it, laptop close, enjoy, then this lockdown is the awesome time. But for them, I think it's very difficult for them, like open the laptop and
okay, I think it is once again the question of drawing a clear line between work and yeah. And like Sushant said, I think in many places, in many organizations, they took it for granted that the guys stay at home. They arrange for meetings at 9 o'clock at night, and I think they took advantage of the situation. Many organizations, even I have experienced it. And yes, I think that was what he's trying to mention. And yes, if you guys have something to say in this regard, you can add on, and then or we can move on to Deepika.
Sure, I just like to add.
Yeah, one more question for Gunjan. Sorry. Yeah, Gunjan, like she was saying that something about the maid thing. Don't you think that if we don't stop their salaries for these maids and all, there are many families who are saying that okay, this is a lockdown, you don't come to our house and we also don't pay you money. If we don't cut down their salaries or something like that, then don't you think this migration would happen, or they can be still in a better situation in which they are now?
Okay, definitely, Sean. So salary is definitely an add-on that it should not be cut. They should be as given importance as the other working women in the corporates or anywhere else, like a salaried employee or something. So they should be given more significant in that. And it's also on the personal conscious, that many people have lost their jobs. Many people have lost, they have EMIs and salary has been cut to half. They don't have anything to survive. It would be a cycle, and yes, also on the personal conscious that if you could afford and still you are not giving it, that's the humanity perspective that you could count on. And problem did exist there.
I guess it all comes down to personal conscience, like Gunjan mentioned. And
yes.
If there is any regulation where they are constantly supported, I think it will be much better than depending on people's personal conscience, I guess. Right? Yeah. And yes, Deepika?
Shraddha's thing.
Okay. we are running short of time to jump one question.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, I'm running late. I'm supposed to reach my office by 9 a.m. and now it's 11 and I'm still on the road.
Okay, we are also running short of time. Please go ahead and make it quick.
Yeah, Shraddha's thing. I want to say Shraddha's thing and then I will leave.
Oh, so you want to hear from me? Okay. So regarding the demarcation of time, right? So again, there are ways to do it, and there are ways where organizations have also addressed this. One of the good things that a lot of organizations, including mine, have done are set out separate timings for essential activities. Like there's a lunch time that is demarcated. Morning calls do not start before 9, and also they have given women who have children, if they want to ensure that their children's school timings are not getting hampered, they are allowed to block that time on their calendar, saying that 3 times or 4 times a week I'm going to take some time off for taking care of my children's study or their school schedule for that 1.5 hours during the day. So there are companies who have come up with policies like these, which are very helpful for managing time. But again, like you rightly said, it comes down to what your managers are like, what your organization policy is like, and what kind of work role you are at, right? If it is something that is of utmost urgency, then definitely all those barriers of ending the call at 7 o'clock are definitely broken, and you end up working through the night. But I think that's true for all corporate jobs. Even before the lockdown, even when I was at office, if there was a month-end audit that was happening, I was staying at office till 11:30, 12 in the night. And that did not stop me from contributing to my workplace. So, I mean, there have to be certain calls that have to be taken and certain boundaries that you have to set with your management to ensure that your productivity is not affected. At the same time, their time is also not wasted.
And to add on to, like, I know how you mentioned that managers take advantage of workers, right? I also think the onus falls on the employer to set out clear policies right at the beginning. Like if they're going to implement from home, they have to set out policies saying that, like what Shraddha said, there are some things that cannot be avoided. But apart from that, if it is a non-essential task, they have to set out policies saying this is your work day, this is your time, and beyond that you should not, even if someone contacts you, you shouldn't feel obligated to respond to it. And if your manager is breaking the policy, you should be able to address it to HR or whoever else, management, who can step in for you, because that's the thing. Because a lot of companies don't have this kind of work from home policy. I guess all of them would have scrambled to put something together, like all of these like guidelines and timelines and everything. You would have just tried to cobble something together at the last minute. So they might have actually had the time to think through as opposed to something that was deliberately done. So now I think now that people have time to see how these people are being taken advantage of, it's very clear. Like you personally can set your own timelines, but if your manager is bullying you, there's not much that you can do. So it has to be like from the company, there has to be like a proper guideline saying this is your time, and beyond that, if you're getting contact, you don't have to be obligated to reply to it. You can just reply to it during your work hours, something like that.
Okay, I guess working from home is a topic that we can dwell upon for, countless hours. So let us hear from Deepika. Thank you, Shraddha, for your views. And Deepika, can you just take over from here?
Yes. So I spoke way too much already. But so I wanted to address a little bit. I know Gunjan and Shraddha also spoke. They had two very different viewpoints. I enjoyed both. Thank you very much. It was interesting to hear both of your viewpoints. I also wanted to share a little bit about how the pandemic has affected. So I felt like we've spoken about like the economic impact and also the personal impact. And I also want to share a little bit about mental and social impacts that the pandemic has had on people, especially women and children also. So according to this, according to the Lancet, this pandemic has just exposed like all the vulnerabilities that we've had in our society for so long. Like most of these things were just like a house of cards, just like waiting to fall at any moment. And then this last breath of the pandemic came like a gust of wind and then shattered everything. I think that was one of the main things that people weren't aware, like how weak the healthcare infrastructure is, how dependent parents are on the schools for as basically doubling as childcare. And there are so many different things that the pandemic has exposed. And also it has shown that it impacts women, considering the discussion is about working women. So I wanted also to see, apart from the obvious economic impacts, such as women not being able to make money, in some cases, a lot of them are the sole breadwinners of the house. They have children to take care of. They have elderly parents, and when they have their economic, like when they don't bring money, it really affects the whole family. So apart from the loss of income, there's also social impacts, such as one of the main things that a lot of people have felt is the inability to go out and socialize with people. Humans are very social creatures. We can look and we can speak and we can make phone calls, but there's nothing really that really compares to meeting a person face to face, having a meal, sharing a coffee with them. And especially I feel like this is not only women, everyone in general, we need to have that kind of a physical social connection. To really recharge. There's nothing that a lot of people have been really concerned about how already there's this seasonal affective disorder and all of that happens, and already people who are facing right now in a very fast-paced work environment, that meeting people weekly for a coffee, or like meeting your coworkers at your job and talking to them face to face, and sharing like your issues and your problems, and like you had whatever, that is a very big part of how we cope with our workday, because you want to speak to someone face to face. But now that we're actively being asked not to socialize, that has really impacted a lot of people. And for me, for my personal work, in my friend circle and in my colleagues, a lot of them are feeling really bad that they're not able to go and visit their families. I can't visit my family because of quarantine. Similarly, like across people who have families in different countries, across different states, there's no travel. And even if you travel, there's like so many restrictions, you're scared. And there's also that underlying paranoia, right? That if you go out somewhere, what if you make your parents sick? What if you make your family sick? And that is also, it has a very, very big mental toll on people. So that, and on children also, and I know a lot of children are having a very tough time adapting to the online curriculum, especially when their parents might not be as digitally literate. And I mean, even for me, like suddenly if you give me a new, everyone was suddenly using Zoom, and I'm like, I have to like Google how to use Zoom now. So that kind of thing, like if you come from a reasonably literate, digitally literate family, or if you have someone that can help you out, then it's one thing. But if you don't, especially for older people, for like if you want to video call your parents, your grandparents, they need someone to show them. So there's that kind of the digital, there's a connect and also a disconnect. So I wanted to address one of the things that could perhaps be done in that situation is to perhaps improve digital literacy, not only for children, but also for elderly people. Now, I know there are not many people who have access to internet in the first place, which itself is a very big thing. That we have telehealthcare, and but there's only you can't do telehealthcare if they don't have a phone signal, which is a big issue in more rural communities. So one of the things that would really be, I think, very important to keep in mind when we are talking about recovering from the pandemic, moving forward, because even after you get the vaccine, there's still there are so many systems that are broken down right now, that we need to really find out a way to go to the root cause and then fix them, instead of just like slapping a band-aid on them and being like, this is fixed for now. But when something else happens, that's going to just like fall down again. So really looking at some digital literacy, improving internet connectivity, and improving phone connectivity and electricity, and those are like some of the things that the government and just like people in general also need to, maybe NGOs, it could look at, to consider to make people more connected so they are able to deal with something like this if they need to deal with it?
Okay, Deepika, I think humans are essentially social creatures, or I think that is the biggest revelation we are taking away from this pandemic. And yes, we will quickly move on to Queenie. Let her, we will just hear to her views also, and then we will take questions together for Deepika and Queenie. Yes, Queenie.
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, good morning to everybody. So, I'm just going to go all over the place because when I started to write or when I started to prepare about this, I was very positive because my life is more or less like Shraddha Devi's life. And, we didn't face many challenges during this pandemic. But then when I started to, I have been talking to many women in this field because I get to talk to a lot of people. So one of the things that they kept on saying was that they have many problems regarding work-life balance. That's the first thing that they tell me. And the second thing is, even the things that we don't consider, such as commuting, food, getting food from outside, everything, some mundane stuff like that is also a problem. So when I started writing...
excuse me, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Can you just keep the... You're sharing within 7 minutes, between 5 and 7 minutes so that we can take questions from others.
Sure.
So, thank you. Yeah, please go ahead.
So that was, so for me, this panel discussion is about, it's a learning experience for me because I got to learn about what Sri Lankan women workforce is all about. Because in our workforce, I think only 35% of women who can be employed are employed. And out of this, I think 20% of them are working in primary sector, which means that they're working as laborers and they can't afford to take work home because they have to, do all the work, by commuting to the place, and everything has to be like earned on a daily basis. And also why we feel like we can't help these women is because we don't take their problems seriously. And COVID, like Deepika said, I think COVID has really highlighted the problems that we face in society. And as a woman, I have a lot of grievances in our society, and I feel like everything is, tracing back to one particular point, and that is gender discrimination. And if you're from a different marginalized group, and if you happen to be a woman, I think you're the most vulnerable in that position. So when I was preparing, I thought maybe not reduce my experiences and talk about the other people's experience. And then because I'm an assistant manager in my company, I get asked to weigh in a lot about the management also. So I just want to talk about a few things that we have done to safeguard jobs in our company. And I just should add, I think 80% of our workforce is women in my firm. So, and then most of them are single, and also they are the sole breadwinners of their families. So it was very crucial to safeguard jobs for them. So what we had done was we had full capacity. We had brought it down to 50%, and we had asked them all to work from home. And this enabled them to have a good work-life balance. And also, we were not in a position to pay full salary anyway. So we had done this so that we could at least contribute some money to them and keep them going until we can figure out a way to make more money. That's what I think that's what we had done. And this should have been a widespread solution rather than laying them off. Right. And another thing, like I said, for primary sectors, what should have happened is you should have taken a roster basis where, they take turns to send employees to work so that you won't overcrowd that place. So you still make money and you still pay them without laying them off and without taking a drastic measure like that. And these measures are probably, my situation is very unique, and I was able to do this probably because my company size is very small, and we were able to ask them even individually what kind of help they needed, so that we can keep them employed. We were not trying to lay anybody off. So that is one of the things that you can do. Every industry can test and adapt a working norm for themselves. That is one of the solutions that we can do. That this is still, I feel like this is still a short-term solution. The biggest solution would be, yes, tackling gender discrimination at the focal point, at the start point of this, and that would be to, bring in that idea of equality in school level, very young. And I know this may be probably a broader concept and a bit away from the topic, but this is what has happened, and this is what's happening during the pandemic, which has had many problems following like a domino effect. I think we all have seen, I think from Ms. Gunjan's speech, we see problems unique to that particular job, and everybody speaks about problems specific to their profession, which means correcting something is also going to correct something else. So correcting the focal point, the root of the problem will be the solution. And my hope for this discussion should be, if at all we do this, then we will be better prepared for the next pandemic, because I think scientists have been warning us about pandemic, and we've been talking about this forever, but we were never prepared, and everything has its own repercussions, and we're suffering. So I hope that will be the solution for this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Queenie. And 2 points from, yes, what you said, the women of the marginalized society, they took the worst hit, I guess. And yes, that is what you mentioned. And another thing, industry-based regulations, industry-based adjustments, that is something we have to really try to implement, assuming we are going to be in this space for a long time, considerably long time.
Yes.
So yes, thank you, Queenie, for sharing your views. Do you have any questions? We do have 5 minutes for the questions session, and that is one from the audience to Ms. Gunjan. The person has asked if you, think that many may choose not to engage in migrant work anymore. So because of this current situation, has it permanently changed the migrant industry, and many may not choose to engage in migrant work anymore?
Okay, sorry, I might have a background noise also, something is playing on my feet. But yeah, taking up this, I do feel there will not be, there's still the requirement of migrant workers because it is cheap, and they are they are skilled in that thing. So people who have already been having certain set of employed workers, like migrant workers, like daily wages in terms of they have working in the bricks, people who work with the brick industry, or who works with egg, or who works in the kirana shops, the conventional stores, etc. So these are the people who are already experienced, skilled, and associated with these things. So I honestly have seen there is a requirement of them because they are cheap and they need them. It is, and the GDP literally
somehow they will be allured back to work, I guess. That is what you are trying to say.
They are actually needed back. Yes, they are definitely needed back. There is a huge demand because there's a lack of laborers right now in the cities. If you see in the metros and all, they are actually needing them back. They are asking them, okay, we'll pay you more, but just come back. This has been a scenario.
Because we know the situation, I think, will be back to status quo. Okay, fine. Yeah. Thank you, Gunjan, for answering that question. And anyone has any questions for Deepika and Queenie? We have 2 more minutes, I guess.
I do have a question for them, but there was an interesting comment in the comment section here. Anuradha says, kindly focus a bit on the teachers who have to cope up with the new model of handling class. I think that is relevant to what Deepika was saying. Digital literacy in India is a huge problem, and not everyone is fortunate enough to quickly get used to and get adapted to online methods and adopting digital modes of communication. And I definitely think that is something that probably Deepika can talk about in terms of how teachers and universities struggled with adopting to online examinations and online teaching as such.
So I can just add to it saying that probably you can make best use of this situation while it lasts. Okay, but this is not going to be there for long term because many students are losing out on their education. So while we are still, I mean, in this phase, probably we can use all the technical, the add-on courses and whatever, the online courses, MOOC courses and everything, that we can make use of all those things, and the students will be very happy. Some of the students will be very happy to make presentations, share their presentations, which they cannot normally do in their physical classrooms. So while this situation lasts, I think teachers can make complete use of this situation. But then since many students are losing out on their basic education itself, I think we have to pray for situation to go back to normal. Yes, thank you. Yes, and I think we have come to the end of the... Yes, over to Shahid or ma'am. Shahid?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So, thank you very much to all our panelists and to the moderator. That was truly a very lively discussion, and we're getting great feedback from our audience as well. So now I would like to request our Director of the Literary Seminary, Dr. S. Padmasini Kannan, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not a vote of thanks. It is a kind of appreciation. Because I have seen here all my children, okay, 8 years before they were children, they all have grown up, and they have all, I knew even when they were here, they had wonderful ideas. But now they have developed everything. And I'm really proud that different people from different era, that is starting from Gunjan, after Gunjan, Deepika, Shraddha, and then finally Queenie. Okay, that is one of my alumni pointed out. Happy to see, ma'am, that you have got every one of them online. Okay, so I'm really happy. I'm really proud of you that you people could come and do everything. And then you will be happy, and especially Gunjan, you should be happy to know that there are many changes, many developments, and many improvements are there. You have to carry this with you, because I think you are the one who have not much had contact with the club except with me. The
Yes,
same
ma'am.
manner, Deepika, you had a contact with me, but not with the club. So you might have seen many developments and many features, and many new adepts have come. And you should congratulate the present group. That is, now for this, of course, Shahid is in charge, but the whole group is led by one Sai Rupa. And she has taken up the challenge of doing everything online, which none of you have done it. You have done a lot to the club, but this is a different challenge that her group has faced. So I hope you enjoyed it and you are happy that you have been with us. And above all, a word about Kavita. Okay, she has been the research scholar, she has been the faculty, but she has been part of the alumni. I think everyone will agree, except Gunjan, because you have not seen. Shraddha, even Deepika knows her, I think, and then Queenie. Okay, so she has been part of the students and part of research work. That is most important for me. It is she And I think in this group, Sayedin is there. And so they are the ones who laid a foundation for research. So I'm really appreciating you. I hope you will grow, and get a good name. And wherever you are, whatever you are, may God bless you all. And then get only kudos and appreciation. Thank you.
So much, ma'am. It means a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
And I'm happy to have seen some of you. At least Shraddha I have seen. Gunjan, Queenie, and Deepika. I was actually, to be very frank with you, I want to see. Deepika promised me that she will be here in India in December. So she disappointed me, and then now she has joined here. Okay, so thank you, and those of you, and a word of thanks to the alumni members who have joined, and especially to Sushant. And as Shahid pointed out, he has become the 5th panelist member. So it's really happy that many of the alumni have joined, and you have made the club be proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, shall we depart?
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
ma'am,
all.
for your inspiring speech. And I would just like to say to all our participants today, thank you very much for joining us. We posted a feedback link in the comments below. Please do follow the feedback link and leave some feedback for us. That's really helpful. And regarding a certificate, we have your email as well as your phone number. So by today, you will receive your certificates. Thank you for joining us.